What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. Today is Monday, August 16th. We had a big weekend of soccer, big weekend of MLS. Lots of things going on. So today we're gonna do things a little different. LA Galaxy have a game tomorrow. So for the first 30 minutes, we're gonna recap LA Galaxy game, and then the second 30 minutes we're gonna talk LAFC, and then we're also gonna have Back in Black join us to talk about that. But here to help me start things off, we have Total Galaxy, aka Alex, and we have Andy Deossa. How you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited for tomorrow's game. Really good result on the weekend. A lot of surprises. That's something to talk about.
Yeah, Andy, how you doing?
Good, man. That, like you guys said, a lot went on. A lot happened over the weekend, just in the soccer world in general. Premier League's back, so things are rolling for sure.
Yeah, everything's going pretty back. So, we got to talk about obviously the LA Galaxy. So we don't have that much time today. So I think we should just get right into it and talk about that, right? So it was like I think the biggest surprises that I think kind of took everybody by surprise was to see Jonathan Klinsmann starting. Because I don't think we expected that, but I mean, to our surprise, he had an incredible game. He just outshined. He had a shutout win performance, and I'm pulling up here the lineup. So I just want to look at the lineup. We can talk a little about the lineup here. But yeah, I was surprised, but I think everybody else was. But his performance was phenomenal. So if we look here at the lineup, obviously you have like I said, Jonathan Klinsmann. You had Nico. He got the start over Jorge Villafana. Derek Williams, Sergio Koulibaly, Araujo. Not much change outside of Nico. Then you had Ravelson, Kleshman, and Al Alvarez in there. We should also mention Leggett was out because of the passing of his sister. So prayers to him. Cabral and Grand Sur. Then you had Dejan Jovic up top. He looked great. Alex, what were your thoughts on the lineup?
Yeah, just like you and I think a lot of other Galaxy fans alike, surprised by the lineup. Obviously, the star goalkeeper Jonathan Bond not starting was a big surprise, but at the same time, he does deserve some rest. Playing 18 games so far this season, and in most other leagues, right, they have the domestic tournament, and usually that's where the backup goalkeeper will get time to play. For us in the U.S., that's the U.S. Open Cup, but they're not hosting it this year, so I can understand why Vanny would want to give Bond a bit of a rest, and you have Klinsmann there, who had a solid game. We'll talk about that for sure later. Also, to Nico Heimelainen, get to see him for the first time. That was something I was definitely going to pay attention to. I know he's a right back. I mean, excuse me, left back that likes to get forward a lot. So I wanted to see if how forward he would get, and if he would kind of be a liability on defense, kind of like how Serginho Dest kind of was for the USMNT during the Nation League games. So I was interested to see that. Also, like you mentioned, Leggett and Jonah not there for Leggett for personal reasons. Jonah, I kind of understand you don't want to burn him to the ground this week, so I understand why Kleshin is playing there. And I was really excited to see Dejan Jovic. So really intriguing lineup, and I think we learned a lot about the depth of the team during the game against Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head. It was very impressive to see what they did. Andy, what were your overall thoughts when you saw this lineup?
I think it was interesting at first because if you think of certain games that you try to kind of mess around with the lineup, I don't know if this necessarily would be one. I feel like a coach would be more inclined to do that at home than do it on the road in a place like Minnesota, which is obviously a tough place to play. But credit to Greg Bandy, man. He did it. He has pieces, and that's the whole thing about him trying to put the squad together this way is that he's really just trying to find out what he has. And I think he's finally getting to that point now as we get closer to September where he knows that he could mess around with the lineup and give players some needed rest. Obviously, you guys mentioned Sebastian Leggett not being there. Dos Santos is also, coming off some personal stuff, and then also the national break with Mexico. So I think it was good to kind of just see a little bit of a change, and for Klinsmann to get the start is definitely pretty cool to see because I think before Bond even came in, that was the number one keeper. That was the idea. So for him to kind of just be able to get that and then have the performance he did was pretty great. So all around, I was definitely shocked by it, but once again, hats off to Greg Vanny for doing that.
Yeah, and obviously they talked. Today was a press call because they play tomorrow, and I think the things that he mentioned, he talked about, giving the senior players, as he referred to them, some rest and to get some other guys in there. But I think another point that he made as well that was really, really great to hear him say is that hey, these other guys understand that there's competition as well, but they're also all a unit. You know what I'm saying? Where you have that, like, obviously not saying that Jonathan Bond would take anything for granted, but also there's going to be someone behind him that is athletic. I think I was seeing that, seeing how Jonathan Klinsmann performed. I think I really got to see his athleticism, because I don't think I've ever noticed that last season, because obviously, last season was different for them, and at times that he'd get scored on multiple times, so we couldn't see that. But now you see how he can look with this defense, right? When this midfield and everything and all those pieces are looking good. But like, he was man of the match for a reason, and what he did, he had like 7 or 8 saves, incredible saves too. Pretty much won him the game. But another player that I want to talk about is Kevin Cabral and also Dejan. They got the incredible assist play, and we really got to see Dejan's ability to see how he's able to read the game, right? And we can say he's a baller. We can see what he's doing with the ball and how you see those movements. Alex, how did you see Dejan's first performance?
To start off the game, first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, not too many touches from him. Something that I was kind of a little concerned about, because I don't want him to kind of not be involved as much when it comes to the build-up play. And just in general, I don't want him to be out of sync with the rest of the other players while the game's going on. As you mentioned, right, his touch pass perfectly for Cabral in stride was amazing, very exquisite pass, and Cabral was able to finish that. I think we'll see a lot more of him tomorrow. Maybe subbing off just so he doesn't play too much, but I'm excited to see what he can do. I don't think we've really seen too much of him yet. Like I mentioned, not too many touches on the ball in the last game, but when he did have chances inside of the box, I felt he took a little bit too much time trying to get his feet set and trying to shoot it. I felt it should have been just more one touch and then just shoot it at the goal. Hopefully it gets on goal, just so he can kind of get a rhythm into the game, kind of what's the word? Kind of just really get in with the rest of his other teammates. So I know there's definitely a lot more of Dejan we haven't seen yet. This week we'll probably see that for sure, whether it be tomorrow against the Rapids or on Friday in the Cali Clasico. I just think Dejan's going to be a really huge addition, especially when it comes to facing some of the tougher teams in the Western Conference.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I've liked what I've seen. I know it was one game, but it looks like he's able to complement Cabral really well and sees where he can hit him in stride. I'm gonna play the goal here. I got it pulled up, and then I'll go to you, Andy.
Now Cabral with Jovic in front of him. Trying to return it. Cabral split in between the defenders. Kevin Cabral, a chance. Cabral scores for the Galaxy. One end of the field to the other, and a chance to go top of the West with a win. They take the lead late in the half.
So obviously that was right before that half, as the announcer mentioned. Then gave him the 1-0 lead, which led to the victory. What were your thoughts on Dejan and then also Kevin Cabral scoring that third goal?
Yeah, I think for him coming in, the important part to remember is that I don't know if he has a solidified role right now, because I think whatever Greg Vanney has been working with him in training right now is obviously not factoring the fact that Chicharito isn't playing and he's in with the team. So I think coming in, like Alex has mentioned, you were probably going to expect it to be a little nervy, a little bit not the cleanest because of that. He probably could say, hey, go and be the striker. But, coming into a new team, hasn't been with them that long, and then just being able to just go in and have an effect in the time that he played was great. Alex mentioned that ball was, I think the precision of it is what is really alarming, because to make that play, and you see how kind of when it built up, I mean, they were completely outnumbered and in tight spaces. I mean, if you're outnumbered but the defense is a little spaced out, it's one thing, but they were outnumbered and it was a tight space, and Cabral, all credit to him for making the run that he did, which was able to free him up. So I think it was, and all you look at it and say, hey, he was able to get an assist, and obviously that's a positive. And for sure, I think there's going to be a lot more to come to see what he could offer. And then for Cabral, it's just great to see. I'll pat myself on the back for not this game, but the past one when we were at the stadium. I said in the press box that he was going to score that day, and he did against Vancouver. And I think it's just him finally getting, a little bit more comfortable. And Greg had kind of mentioned that him being a little more physical too. And then I think when you're in that position and you want to score, I mean, he even still had another chance to put another one in the back of the net. I think it was in the second half, and obviously that didn't happen. But I think the goals happening for him is gonna open up his game a lot, because I think we've already seen those flashes of him being able to take on defenders. But I think that run is something that is going to be very it's going to be very memorable moving forward, knowing that he could find that space and kind of just fool defenders in a quick second and maybe free himself up. So once again, it's just an abundance of great options for Greg Vanney to have, and it's good to see that a new guy could go and have the assist, and then a guy like Cabral, who you've been counting on and who has been a little bit snake bitten, finally gets 2 in a row. So that's great for the Galaxy.
Yeah, no, and just to add on to that, just to see, just Cabral to get his 3rd goal, Dejan to make an impact right in the first 45 minutes of his career with the LA Galaxy and the MLS. Just seeing how those two intertwine and able to work, because I mean that was a top class play, right? Dejan read the movement. Cabral did what he did it, and he finished. And obviously the pressure starting to come off Cabral, because I know some fans were very opinionated about him, and as they should be. But I also felt that he was going to take some time, and clearly he at times he struggles with the physicality of the league, and he's going to get better by game by game. But a player like Dejan, to be able to place the ball perfectly and away from defenders, so Cabral necessarily doesn't need to physically fight with them or anything like that. He can just use his speed to get past them. I think Cabral may be one of the biggest beneficiaries of Dejan. And whenever Chicharito comes back, Chicharito is definitely going to benefit off of that. If they do play with 2 forwards up top. But let's also talk about Chicharito, because Greg Vanney today, he confirmed that Chicharito is not going to be available for tomorrow. He did mention in today's press call that he's back, he's doing some movements and stuff. And he also said that they're not going to rush him. They still have no rush him. So do we see him this month? Maybe, maybe not. He's answered our questions. I think we just need to ask him, is Chicharito playing like this month? Because we ask him every game and he tells us, he's like, no, he's not available. And he's just very honest and straight up. But I think, and they don't depend on him. They don't depend on him right now. And that's the benefit of seeing how this group came together, and, and how they won essentially this game for most of the part of this game with the backup players, and obviously Jonathan and everybody else came in. Alex, but how do you feel about Chicharito? Because Greg Vanney seems, like he's not going to rush him, and I don't think they need to rush him.
Yeah, they're like you said it right now. There's really no need to rush him. It's not like this team is going to get into the playoffs in 2 weeks, right? If there was a playoff push, then yeah, maybe I could understand that. Maybe play him, a half, 60 minutes, stuff like that. But right now they're in a good groove, and really this is kind of what the team needed for the first, 10 games of the season. Chicharito was their only scoring machine there. They had nobody else scoring goals. It was just the Chicharito show from the beginning of the season. And that really wasn't a good sign, and overall isn't a good sign of a functioning team, right? In any sport, you don't want to depend on one player for your offensive production. So seeing that this team without that striker is doing pretty well, and we're seeing players like Cabral, Revolution, and then now Dejan, who's going to have a chance here, seeing them perform without Chicharito and seeing them score goals without him is a really good sign that the team is growing overall, because there was tons of concerns at the beginning of the year. If we're going to depend on Chicharito, if he gets injured like he did this season, how are we going to get our goals? How are we going to win games? And fortunately enough, Greg Vanney's doing a great job with his team, and Chicharito as well, been a big leader while he's been hurt in the locker room. So I think this really shows more the growth of the players, aside from just Chicharito. So like, Greg Vanney says, I don't think there's any need to rush him right now. You're doing good with the players that you brought in. You want the players that you brought in to continue to grow and develop, and they're doing that right now without him. It's not like he's going to stunt their growth, but you want them to have the opportunities to really shine and just show their best. So Greg Vanney knows what to do, how to game plan when it comes to playoff time.
No, that makes great. And I think it's also impressive how the Galaxy, how they're united on one aspect, because I know Greg Vanney at the start of the year, he was talking about the culture, right? But to stay, I know they were in first place for like a couple hours, I don't know, but then they stayed in 3rd place. But to still be consistent up top 3 without Chicharito's presence there, I think that's the biggest thing that stood out for me.
Yeah, I think we noticed early on in the season that this was going to be special for the Galaxy. And I think from the very beginning, even if it was Chicharito who was the one that was scoring, the team was just getting off to a fast start. And it was not, I don't think anybody really expected them to play that well the way they've been playing up to this point as well. Just because you have so much turnover in the team, you basically have to. They have 17 new players. You have to instill a whole new type of system. You have to get these players to gel. You have players coming from different countries. And Alex said it. The most impressive part is that they're able to get these results on the road at home without arguably their most important player. Whether or not that's a good or a bad thing going forward, I don't know, because putting Chicharito back into that lineup hopefully does not change too much of the production for what these players have. But once again, the job that Greg Vanney has been doing, and we've been saying this from the very first month of the season, you can't be talked about enough. So I think everybody has the utmost confidence that he'll be able to figure that out when he has all the players at his disposition. The only thing that I'm mad about is Chicharito might not play this Tráfico coming up, and we've been waiting for this Vela Chicharito matchup for a minute. And the other thing is MLS is still promoting this All-Star game that Chicharito's going to play. Not to get too much behind the scenes, but I was talking to somebody in the front office today that still talked to me about Chicharito. So I don't understand if maybe because Greg mentioned that he had been in conversations with the league about his involvement in the game and whatever the case may be. Maybe his injury is getting a lot better and he's getting close, but if we don't see him on the field, I mean, obviously not tomorrow, but if we don't see him even on the team sheet for the weekend game against San Jose, which if we're being 100% honest from the Galaxy standpoint, it doesn't benefit them playing him in that San Jose game, knowing the physicality of that rivalry, knowing how San Jose likes to get after the game. And then after that, you're talking about an All-Star game and then an LAFC game that to the Galaxy, sure, it's important, but it's not as important as it is to LAFC. So it's unfortunate of the timing of it, but Chicharito's going to come back when he's ready. And at the end of the day, it's the best thing for the Galaxy. Greg Vanney could really care less about anything else, and I think it's the right call.
Yeah, no, and I mean, you talk about the marketing wise, what MLS is doing. Not just the MLS, but the Mexican national team did it as well. When I was at the game that happened, I don't know, it was in Nigeria that they played at the Coliseum. I think it was against Nigeria, but Bud Light promotions all over with Chicharito's face on it. Obviously, Chicharito was not called up by Tata Martino, but it just goes to show that how big his name is, and and then like they're definitely going to use it because he's the biggest star right now in the MLS. But unfortunately, if he's not going to show up, because I mean, you look even in the All-Star skills challenge, it's Vela, Raul Ruiz, Zella Ryan, I think the guy from Minnesota United that played at Boca Juniors, I'm forgetting his name, Reynoso. I mean, all those guys, I mean, to see them together in a skill challenge against Liga MX players, that would be amazing. So I know they're definitely going to pump that. But like, yeah, if Greg Vanney because you make a point, right? San Jose is a physical game. All-Star skills challenge, he's probably not going to play. And then LAFC, the El Tráfico, that's another tough game, and I think that's the final game of the month in August. So yeah, if you don't play him this month, because the big when do playoffs start? September, October, November.
November.
Okay. Well, I knew I was going to call out one of those months. I just had to keep going. But like, yeah, it makes sense. So if you don't like Greg Vanney said in the Galaxy side, right? As fans, I eventually want to see Vela and Chicharito, but I don't know if we'll see that. We might not even see it at all this year, and we don't know what happens in the future because Vela, we know is on a contract year, and we don't obviously things aren't looking good for them right now. But yeah, I would like to see that, and it'd be unfortunate that if we never see that Vela Chicharito matchup because of injuries and because of what had happened last year with COVID and everything. But I guess we'll just have to see, wait and see approach. But it's not looking likely that we'll see Chicharito play potentially this month. Maybe we'll have to see what happens with San Jose. But nevertheless, I think it's just been impressive the job they've been doing, how Chicharito's engaged, and then also how everybody, with everything that's been going on with like Jonathan Dos Santos, the passing of his father, and then also like Sebastian Lletget, the passing of his sister, how I'm pulling up this photo here. Of the teammates in the locker room, right, holding a Lletget jersey, and I think Joan Araujo had something about I don't recall the exact words, but I think he had Vivi on it taped on his wrist or on the wrist that he had, and it just shows, right, like when you're going through something, it just shows how really connected this group is, and no matter what, they're taking pictures, and obviously winning helps, but like this team's going the extra mile to show like, hey, we really care about it, guys. It's not just about what's going on in the field, and we never saw that 2 years ago, 3 years ago necessarily, right? Alex, obviously being a fan, a lifelong fan of the LA Galaxy, how does that make you feel when you see every player has each other's back?
Yeah, if you were like a parent, right? It's something that just really
Hold
brings you
on,
to
hold on. Did you just compare it to being a parent?
well, hold on, I'm not
What
done
kind of
yet, bro.
experience
I'm
do you
not done
have?
yet, bro. I'm not done yet.
What
It's
kind
like,
of Alex?
hold
Just remind us how old you are again.
bro, I'm 17. I'm not a parent, bro. Anyway,
Go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
anyway. It's like just seeing you like kids growing up, right? Like this team before just really seems so disconnected and just seems so individualistic. Especially during the Zlatan era, really. That was definitely the emphasis of the team. A lot of just individual instead of a collective. Now you see that this team is maturing. Players are maturing. Everybody here brought in has a common goal, win a championship, and everybody here as well also just wants to build a relationship with the player right next to them. It doesn't matter, who they are. A bunch of these players brought in are new, and to see them just really be connected with one another and really just be like a family in the locker room, it's just really great to see.
Yeah. No. I think that's just the most amazing thing, how they connected together. Andy, you know when a team is connected like that, because the things outside the field, when everything's rolling. What are you seeing from this Galaxy team that you haven't seen it as the brotherhood this year?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think we saw it from the beginning, and they really. I mean, I think that win down in Miami, just being the first game and how it happened and transpired, was important, because they really came out from that moment and talked about, we play as a family, we play as brothers, and it's like you said, it's fine for teams to say that because it is kind of cliche, but when you see the results pour in the way they do, with the different lineups, with the different moves that Benny has made and players from all over the world, it's really impressive. And I think that was what I wrote at the time, was like, hey, the whatever's happening on the field is one thing, and the fact that Chicharito was atop the Golden Boot race was incredible, and obviously his new mentality was reflecting on the team. But it's just the fact that they're still able to do this and keep this consistency without him being on the field is all props to what Greg Vanney has done. And you said it, like it's you could see it. It's not just that they're saying it. I mean, the players have said it all year about just the way that they are in the locker room, a lot more loose, playing music, joking around, smiling. So I think that it's once again, like I mentioned earlier, you can't give Greg Vanney enough credit for what he's done. I understand the arguments are going to be there for Bruce Arena and for Ryan Schmetzer at the end of the year for Coach of the Year, but man, Greg Vanney has as good as an argument as anybody in the league does for that award. And obviously, being at the top of the standings like they are in such a crowded West, and they're still playing, pretty good opposition, and they're showing that they could do this. And I think the most important thing to realize is that Vanney knows that you can't go out and try to, you can't go out and try to do the same thing every game. And he's mentioned some wins are professional wins, some wins are character wins, but it doesn't matter. Like they, whatever they could do, if they're getting the 1 point, if they're getting the 3 points, they're just keeping that consistency, reaching their goals. And he said it, he's surprised at how good they were at the point that, the midway point of the season. So if they could keep this up, there's no reason to not believe that this team could make a run for MLS Cup. And obviously Vanney has experience in that realm, and to see the Galaxy back at that level is only good for obviously the fans, but it's good for the league, man. It's one of the most popular teams, historically the most winning team. So it's all thumbs up, man. It really is.
Yeah, and talking about that, I'll kind of pull up the stats here, or the standings, excuse me. So obviously they're still in third, but it's a tight race from first to third, right? It's only 2 point difference from Galaxy and Kansas City. Seattle's 1 point difference. Obviously, if they win tomorrow, I don't know if any other teams play tomorrow as well, but I don't. They can claim that number one spot as well. With this being such an interesting week, they play Tuesday, and then obviously they play again Friday. If we look at the standings, right there, from, like I said, first to third, they're very close. But when you go to fourth, there's kind of a gap. There's a 4 point gap. Colorado, who they play tomorrow, interesting enough, there's a 4 point gap. They've been kind of like the quiet team. Obviously, we know we're going to see Mark Anthony Kay, who's played with LAFC. If we look at fifth, right, Minnesota, who they just played, Salt Lake at 24 points, Portland at 23, LAFC at 23, and eighth place. We're currently sitting out. So, I mean, it's looking tight, and a lot of things can change over this next week. with this Galaxy team, they can definitely move up, or they can definitely either stay the same or drop down a little bit. But how you feeling when you see the Galaxy there, Alex, 2 points away from being back in first place?
It's obviously, a really good sign, right? The team's been consistent all year. And Colorado, this game upcoming against Colorado does kind of a little scare me a bit because Colorado do have, their 2 games in hand from the rest of the Western Conference. So they can definitely pick that up and really start to climb in these standings. It could be a 4-team race, by the end of this weekend, right? For the top of the Western Conference. So I think this game is probably a bit more important than the San Jose game this Friday, just my opinion, just because Colorado are a quality opponent. And I think Robin Fraser's done a really good job over the last couple of years, with Colorado being able to mold them into a better team. And overall, they play well as a unit. So I really think the Galaxy, from what they've shown, they've played a majority of the teams that are currently, pulled up right now, the Geo pulled up. They played a majority of those teams and have positive results with them. So I'm not too worried about their opposition right now in the Western Conference. They haven't had their best starting 11, their best players out in the single lineup because of all these injuries and international duty call-ups. So I think there's still a lot more for the Galaxy to learn and really be able to dominate the opponents that they play a lot more, because Greg Manny's play style is, it's simple, right? Just build up possession, and then, when the opportunity is there, take it, right? It's a pretty simple way to play football. And I think in this Western Conference that they have, some of the teams have been up and down. And I think the Galaxy are going to be consistent when it comes to the Western Conference opponents.
Yeah, let me pull this back up for you, Andy. But like, how are you feeling about obviously everything we talked about? But then, I mean, we know the Western Conference is very competitive, but obviously how close they are from first to third, and the way the Galaxy are playing right now.
I think the most important thing to note, Gio, and you said it, is that gap between 4 and 5. Because if the Galaxy starts to amass a few more points, then we're talking about an automatic home playoff game, which is a huge benefit. Obviously the attendance has not been the greatest, but it'd be no surprise that a playoff game in Carson is going to be rocking with whoever they have to play, and that's huge. That's huge for the Galaxy. That's huge for any team in MLS, and the teams that you see up there. Obviously, Seattle has a very huge home field advantage, and KC does too. So that gap is really important. That's why that win over Minnesota was huge to kind of keep spreading that a little bit. But at the same time, those teams at the bottom of the table, man, Portland, you saw the game yesterday against Seattle. They got smacked up. But these are teams that could come in and give anybody a problem. Real Salt Lake has shown it this season that they could really play. In Minnesota, despite the result with the Galaxy, I mean, that's a very talented team that will put up for anywhere. And obviously, just for the sake of Spain, I don't think Galaxy really want to play LAFC in the playoffs. I don't think LAFC want to play the Galaxy in the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting. I think any of those teams, and San Jose is in the mix too, and we can't forget that San Jose is a rival. So I think the good thing about where the Galaxy stand is that gap, like you mentioned, that they could keep getting a few more of these 3-pointers. They lock that home game down, then it's going to benefit them a lot. But once again, man, they it's MLS. The playoffs start, and a lot of crazy things can happen. So I think for Vanny, what he's noticing is being able to realize the amount of depth that he has, and the amount of different ways he can kind of present this lineup, because like we mentioned, we still haven't seen that lineup at 100%, and it has signs of being very scary when it is at 100. So when we'll see that, it's going to be closer to the playoffs, and that's obviously going to be super scary for anybody that's trying to come into LA and win a game over here.
Yeah, no, and that's the biggest thing as well, right? When you look at the Galaxy, is they're not once you see them at full health, they can be the number one, or I don't really see things going down for them, just how they're rolling and their mindset and how they're connected and everything we mentioned. They're looking good. They're looking definitely solid. So I think hats off to them as right now. I know that I think we're just over half the season, so there's still a lot to go on. But look, like you mentioned, I think we'll see how the turnout is. Tomorrow is very hard, Tuesday night, for people to show up on a Tuesday night. So I think that's going to make it difficult to go. But like, obviously I will be there. I'm not sure if you'll be there, Andy, but like I mean, Alex, I know you're a season ticket holder. Are you going to go tomorrow, Alex?
Yeah, I'll be going tomorrow.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. So all right, guys, we're at the 30-minute mark. So like I said, because of the crazy schedule of crazy schedule of games and stuff like that, we're covering the Galaxy game. So I got to switch. We're going to switch over now to talk to talk LAFC. Let me just put this up just so everybody can look over. I know if you're a Galaxy fan, you probably don't want to look at that logo, but I just want to pull it up. So now we're going to transition to talk LAFC, and we got Back in Black joining us here to talk LAFC. Alex, you can definitely chime in if you want to chime in.
Okay, I'll just stay for a little bit because
you can stay
I'll just stay for a little bit.
You can definitely stay. Celso, how you doing? How's everything?
Oh man, I mean, life's good. Can't complain. The team so far, it's another story. So I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I know. You guys did the spaces today. How did that go? How's the mood in the spaces?
Yeah, it was unique. I think a lot of people noticed or pointed out the fact that this hasn't happened to our team yet. We've been since the expansion happened, we really didn't have a down year, and we actually are taking it pretty hard as a fan base. That comes off a tough trip to Atlanta. You don't expect to go in there and dominate. So there's something there, but when you look at the schedule, what's coming, and the last 5 games particularly, it's not a good place to be, and I'm extremely worried. I'm not hopeless. I think that's the difference between where I'm standing versus some of the chatter that I saw today at our podcast.
Yeah. No, appreciate you. Well, let's start things going. We'll start this with this. Obviously, LAFC they ended up losing to Atlanta. It was a tough game, but we also had Mamadou's fall. He scored. I was trying to pull up the video, but I couldn't find it. But he scored, but he looked to be just right offside. But I think you tweeted something, didn't you?
I manipulated the image a little bit, and it seems like he was clear offside.
As a support of the team, I wouldn't expect anything less. But Andy, I'll go to you. Let's talk about that because I think I have it right here. Oh, here, let me just pull this up. But let's talk about that. Mamadou, I don't have the video, but I have Back in Black's tweet that I can pull up here. How'd you feel? Obviously, it looked like it was a great play. Eduardo Tuesta placed it perfectly, but Mamadou Fall was just off by a hand.
I think the one thing I'll say is, I don't know how many years we're in or whatever, but I don't think anybody understands how VAR works at any level at this point. I think it's still a guessing game, every league. Bob Bradley said it best. If you go by the rule book, VAR, it technically should not be calling that goal off, but maybe they have another angle that they're looking at that we don't know about. But yeah, I think that the one promising thing about that play was obviously Atuesta's delivery was amazing, but that's something that was, that's off the training ground. And we haven't seen LAFC have many set piece moments that look that well. And I think they were probably smart enough to know that, hey, maybe Fall will get a little bit of space. They won't be too worried about him, maybe because they don't know him that well defensively. But yeah, I think that it was a good play. And if that goal would have stood, the conversations may have been a lot more later this week than perhaps they are. But it's part of the game. Inches, like you said, it's all a game of inches.
Yeah. What Back in Black, what made you pull up this picture, make it black, and zoom in? And did you just have to make sure that he was 100% outside, or
I wanted to see how fast. First of all, how fast he got to a decision, and when I first saw it, I thought he was off, and I wanted to know how fast he got to a decision, and I realized that the shadows give it away right away because Mamadou's fall is the one closest to the white line, so that essentially, even if you don't look at him, you just look at the image, the shadows. His shadow is clearly ahead of the other person. And that's essentially what I think they saw and called it right away. I don't know. I started manipulating images, and I literally got the picture. I'm like, someone posted, you know what it was? Someone posted that photo saying that it was a go. And I'm like, I don't think it was. And that's when I started playing around with it. Let me just make sure. Stuff happens. You can't live off these things. I'll just let you know this. You can't live off these. Oh, it almost was a goal. Maybe we'd have scored. They had a play at the end of the game that could have easily been a goal, and it was called back. So at the end of the day, the game was extremely close. They had chances. They scored once again in one of our errors. And when we had our chances, we didn't. We had chances, and we didn't.
No, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. Alex, as a Galaxy supporter, obviously, how good does this make you feel? Them seeing struggle, or you don't think that way, or are you just not gonna say
I
anything?
mean, to be honest, I'm not really too
Let's be honest.
surprised because, like,
You're
you know,
not too
every team.
surprised. Okay.
Well, I'm not too surprised because every team goes through like a slump, right? There's always a season, right? The Galaxy have had, you know, throughout the history, they've had times where they've slumped and not performed up to par. We recently saw that for the last 4 years. So, you know, every team's going to go through that. Not surprised. The LAFC core that they've had for since, you know, they became an expansion team kind of dwindling down a little bit, right? You saw Mark Anthony Kaye get traded, and then you know, Vela's in a contract year, and then Rossi and Atuesta have ambitions to go to Europe. Bob Bradley as well on a contract year. So I'm not surprised that there's a little bit of, I guess, a discomfort in a really rough patch this year, just because usually when, you know, there's rumors chirping around about Everton, Tottenham wanting you, and same thing with another player, you know, you don't know if you're a star player, you're basically, because Vela is undoubtedly LAFC's best ever player. You know, is he going to stay again? And then your coach as well, you don't know if he's going to stay again, because they've gotten really close over the last couple of years to real success, but they just haven't been able to do it. So I feel like, you know, seeing them struggle and seeing them, you know, really go through inconsistent patches throughout the season, I'm really not surprised, because all those factors playing in are just a recipe for a rough, inconsistent season.
So you saw this from the get-go. All right, that's what I took about it. Let's talk. We got to talk about Joseph's goal. We got to talk about Jesus Murillo, Andy's boy, who played for him, who played for your club team, your home club team, right?
Yes.
I'm just joking with you, Andy, and everybody there. I just tease him because he played for Andy's club team back home. But look, I'm gonna play the image, and I got a good angle from Atlanta, and give me your thoughts on this. Obviously, we don't need a celebrate or whatever, but when you see how poorly Jesus Murillo played it, and I mean this angle just hits it how perfectly how poor he played it. What were your thoughts when you saw this play?
I mean, listen, I think that the first half showed that was an easy way to get past the defense, and I think they even mentioned on the broadcast, like a ball over the top is probably going to beat the defense the way that they were set up. Inexcusable. I mean, there are mistakes that happen, and at the danger of sounding like Bob Bradley, you know, you can't have that happen in those moments. Like, you know, the position that the team is in, you're playing alongside a kid who's getting his first start. You're supposed to be, you know, a leader at this rate because you're an all-star. Obviously, Segura's out with the ACL. Your back line is makeshift. I mean, and knowing the quality of attackers that Atlanta has on the ball, it's just a play that you can't make. And, you know, any other move there probably cuts that opportunity down, and we're having a whole different conversation. So it's just a bad look for Jesus David Murillo. Great for Joseph Martinez getting back behind the ball and scoring after all the things that happened in Atlanta with the old coach and him just not being able to play. But for LAFC, it's a mental game, and I think that those moments start to add up. You know, you could blame Mark Anthony Kaye for a lot of things. You could blame Murillo for certain things. You could place blame on a lot of people for a lot of things, mishaps in LAFC season so far. But in that moment, coming out of the break, I guess surviving and having a scoreless game in an environment like that, it's just something that can't happen. And I think that that was it, man. I feel like that game was the moment that finally struck Bob Bradley and was like, yeah, this is not good. I think after a lot of the games, you know, he still kind of kept his persona to the media and when he talks to us and answers our question. But I think this was the game that he was like, I don't know, man. Like I've said it many times on the show. Everything that he's trying is just not working. He seems like he's out of ideas. And unfortunately, if they get out of Atlanta with a point, or, you know, obviously with the win would have been incredible. But even with the point, I think that would have felt great for the team moving forward. But to lose in that fashion is obviously not going to help at all.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I agree with what you said about Bob Bradley. Listening to the press conference, you know, it was a different tone, a different side that we have not seen of Bob Bradley. You know, just coming clean and taking 100% ownership of what has happened, right? even if the player's mistakes. But back in black, let's go back through that play. What are your thoughts on that play, and obviously seeing what happened there?
Well, two things. Looking up Murillo's stats, this is the third game he did not complete or play 90 minutes. That tells me something's wrong. Could be an injury there. He's not fully recovered, which tells me we might be extremely shorthanded in that position to the point that we just, you got to play a half-injured guy and risk aggravating his injury, and just because that if you don't, you're going to get smacked, and we saw that. We saw that early on in some of the games. So, I can't blame Murillo for one play, because when I look at collectively what he's done, they try to move away from him. The number of touches was down. It has been down. They clearly are relying on him to do half of what he used to, and that's why you see three center backs quite often. So, sure, let's put the blame on Murillo for the one play he didn't dominate and didn't put it in, right, or didn't do the right decision, and led to a mistake that led to a shot on goal that led to a goal. But again, I think it's deeper than that. And yeah, we were behind and we could have been up because of the other goal, but we cannot put this on the one play that resulted in one goal. It's a symptom of a bigger issue. And it showed up pretty clear that we're missing some true center backs that can compose our defense when some of our guys go down. Look what happened. We had some cluster injuries in the defensive back, right? And then secondly, Murillo, we don't know where we're playing. I mean, we can go into the formation and we can go into the Bob Bradley overreacting at times and changing his starting lineup too casually, which leads to the team losing performance and often just completely looking disconnected, right? And what I saw in the first half was a completely disconnected team. And yet the goal happened in the beginning of the second half, where he actually did some adjustments that changed the momentum, right? So what do I think about the goal? Not much. I thought it was an unlucky goal. Like, it's football, man. It happens, right? We could have scored first, but we were unlucky. And again, they were lucky this time. But what is happening in the beginning of games that is leading to the starting 11 decisions? Why did you not start Cifuentes if he was available for the second half? Because as soon as you put him in that midfield, poof, all of a sudden we started actually doing stuff, right? Those are the decisions that I believe we're losing Bob. Bob lost, he's in his head and he can't put the best 11 people to play.
So you feel this is more? I'm with you. I agree. I get what you're saying. I think on that play specifically, I think that's a Murillo, and that's the second time that I recall. And you may.
It's receiving, right? I tweeted look, pro soccer, it's about receiving. I played pro V11, and I'm like, whoa, I can't do that. 40 yards, this ball coming, and I gotta make sure.
But look, what I'm trying to say is he shouldn't have got that with his knee. If you're an elite center back and you're going to the All-Star game, that was not elite. That was mediocre. He should have got that with his head or whatever. With his head, and I think. That's the first time I've seen it from Murillo was El Tráfico, and I don't know if I recall if there's another thing. I don't mean to pick on the guy, but look, if they paid $1 million to get you here from Colombia, and you got to play better. This game is a number of things, but Murillo missing that like that, you just can't do that. You can't do that.
But is he hurt? And that's my question. Was he hurt playing? Because his stats they're not the same he's not the same Murillo that was playing in the beginning of the year. And you can see that on his stats. It's not the same guy. So what happened?
That's totally fair. That's totally fair. But that play specifically, it has to be better. It has to be better. And look, this game's not on him necessarily. That's his mistake. Rossi had a couple opportunities. Romero played great, but me just looking at that play, as someone who got paid a lot of money to come here, or the transaction wise, it got to be better. There's no excuse. They're just, and you're the last line of defense, and you're the veteran on the team, Mamadou Fall, right? I feel like he's had a better last 3 games than Murillo, but Murillo is the guy. You know what I'm saying? So I think just keep him accountable. But to your point, there was a lot of other things that affected.
So maybe you're touching on leadership and some of the intangibles that Walker Zimmerman brought in. And again, if you look at the national MLS writers, all they say is we cannot replace Walker Zimmerman. We just can't do it. And every time we try, hey, let's bring in Murillo, let's bring in this person. It's Eddie Segura is the guy now. But we cannot replace our sheriff in the back. And we all thought Murillo was the guy, right? And now he's showing leadership issues, right? He's again, making mistakes. That's leadership. Leaders don't make mistakes in crucial times, right? And we've been talking about leadership. Who's the leader in the back? Who is it? It's not Vela. You can take the captainship away from him, but there's no captain in the back, and that's a vocal captain. It's not a Tuesta either, because he's not a native defensive midfielder. So you have a problem. We have a captainship problem in the defensive side of the field, right? It's big and it's exploding, and nobody can bring that. Maybe it was going to be Vermeer, right? Because no one is saying, hey, this is what I see. We're going to make changes here. It's not happening.
Yeah. Alex, give me your points. Obviously, what you see there on LAFC's, because I know you're not a supporter of the team, but seeing some of the mental mistakes that they've had. What are your thoughts when you see that?
Yeah, I can, bring this back to Galaxy, the last couple of years, right? The center backs has definitely been an issue. And on this play specifically, Murillo's at fault, but I don't think he's necessarily the scapegoat or someone you should blame for the loss, really. Because at the end of the day, it was really, Rossi's finishing touch wasn't there. And that's really what kind of is kind of frustrating a lot of LAFC fans from what I can see, right? Obviously, last year winning the Golden Boot, you kind of have those kind of expectations for this year as well, and you're not really seeing that. So I understand why there's a lot of frustration on that side. And in this game, right, he had a chance and just it went outside a goal. And I think most of the time, if you're talking about 2019, 2020 Rossi, he definitely would have put that in the back of the net. So I wouldn't necessarily blame this on the defense too much, while they do need work, because they, from what I've been reading, right, they've been shifting between formations, right, 3 center backs, 4 center backs. Even in this game, right, they switched formation mid-game. So I think there needs to be consistency and assertiveness when it comes to how you want to play, because if you're going to commit to a play style, you have to commit to it, really. Because if you're flip-flopping between things, players are going to have different assignments, players are going to have different things to do, and at the end of the day, you're just going to confuse them and I guess kind of wear them out mentally as well, since you're kind of telling them to do one thing and then halfway through the game you're telling them to do another thing or play this way instead. I think that's a lot more mentally draining, and I feel like that might be something that Bob Bradley may have, not saying he's lost the locker room, but something that could eventually lead to him losing the locker room.
You bring up a great point. Andy, we'll talk about Diego Rossi and then we'll talk about Bob Bradley. Diego Rossi is completely fallen off from the type of player he was in last year, right? He was an offensive threat. He was scoring amazing goals, putting the goals back in the net. To me, it is so surprising that a player of that caliber to go through this slump for so long. And, obviously I asked Bob, but, he pretty much wouldn't give us too much about what's going on, because that is the biggest question, why Diego Rossi has fallen off this bad, because this touching is not there. Bob Bradley mentioned the confidence at the other game. What are your thoughts of what's going on with Diego Rossi?
Yeah, it's a great mystery, like you mentioned, man. You asked Bob, and I don't think anybody saw this coming. Everybody's shocked by it, coming off of winning the Golden Boot. And it's not just so much that he's not scoring, it's everything else. It's just the way he's missing, some of the touches are off. It's just things that we're, I guess, accustomed to seeing from him. They're just not there. And in his defense, they're not there for a lot of people at all. But I think I tweeted it during the game, where towards the end of the game, if this was a year for him to boost his trade value, it's gone way down than what it was before the season started. And it's unfortunate, because we know he's a good player, but I think it's just a reflection of the team. I don't think that they're together at all. And if you're a player trying to work through it, work through your own stuff, but the team itself is not at a place that you could be. I think Chicharito's a perfect example. Him trying to work through his stuff last season clearly wasn't happening, because the team was not up to par. This year, his mentality change and everything is a lot different. If Chicharito was struggling this year, it would be a lot easier for him to come back, because the team is playing in it and playing good football. Right now, LAFC is just not playing a good brand of football. And Bob could, talk about possession and talk about, trying to dictate the pace of games. But I think it's important to note, when we talk about all these different formation changes, the reason why Bob started experimenting with a formation change is because people figured out the 4-3-3. And it's now shocking that we're going back to the 4-3-3 being their best option. And Greg Vanney said something today in the press call that was very interesting to me. And I don't think it was a shot directly at LAFC, but he did mention there's just some teams that how they're going to play. And that's what happened at LAFC. People figured them out, and that's what made them change. Yeah. So, I think it's a mixture of all that. That's obviously harder for Rossi when players are more accustomed to what he's going to be doing. But at the end of the day, man, he's one, like Back in Black has mentioned, you're talking about one problem in a way bigger issue for the team, the dynamic of confidence, the dynamic of production. And like I mentioned, now they're starting to feel that pressure where time is running out. We talked about all season, like, sure, there's problems, but they could fix it. Now it's no, I don't know if they could fix it. Now it's you need to get some points, or there is no fixing. It's just going to be a missed season, and then it's going to be a lot more of change, turnover, turmoil, or whatever you want to mention.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to play by one of the worst seasons any MLS team has gone through with the type of talent that they have, right? And you look at Diego Rossi, you bring Chicho, he looks really good. Carlos Vela, Eduardo Tuesta, the list goes on and on. But to me, back in Black, Diego Rossi, his struggles and everything you mentioned, it probably is a bigger issue than what he's doing, what's going on with him. But to me, I just can't get past it. Last year, the Golden Boot winner. I know you had injury. You came in the season with the injury, so it's like I try to think that he not. I don't know if this to be true. Did he not take the offseason seriously, or did he not put as much effort in the offseason or prepare like he has before? Because that's the only way I can think about it. Or he did, or he's going. That's why I asked Bobby, is he going through something outside the pitch? You know what I'm saying? That maybe something with the family member or something like that. Obviously they're not going to tell us, but I think that would help me, and I think other fans understand, because it clearly just doesn't make sense. Because you talk about the formation, right? And I think the 4-3-3 or the formation that the 4-3-3. I think Andy, you asked him about Chicho playing the number 9, but then he ends up out on the wing, and it just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
But let's talk about Diego Rossi, Back in Black. What I know you look at stats. What are some of the biggest stats you see from Diego Rossi this year to opposed to last year when he was killing it?
Yeah, it was one of the bigger points I brought in during our pod today, which is his shot on target percentage is bottoming to 25% in the last 6 games, where his career numbers are close to 50%. Okay, so if you just think about it, if he used to take 2 shots, 1 was good, and now he needs to take 4 shots for 1 to be good. That's tremendous for a football player. Your efficiency just went down half, and that tells me that the issue may not just be him, because you don't go from being one of the best players for your entire career to all of a sudden forgetting how to shoot on goal. But it's what you guys said. We figured out the things that we got to do to stop LAFC, and one of them is you make sure that Rossi is completely out of the game. And I believe that every week that's what the coaching staff will do, and that's why you see Vela holding the ball more often, and that's why you've seen us try to explore the flanks with Munwan and Edwards to try to find space, because through the middle where Rossi used to be and find space for the 1-2s, the short touches, it's completely convoluted. You're not going to get through. So partially, I believe, is what you just mentioned. We will take him out of the game, and LFC will become predictable, and it's all about Vela FC, and we have a pretty good chance. That's where I believe our office is struggling, and Vela's numbers have regressed too, but Rossi has just completely gone down. Why? I don't know if it's because of personal stuff. We all have personal things, and one of the things that happen at times, like when you go to work, it might be good for you. So if there's one personal thing going on, is that he may not want to be in LA anymore. He may just be over this conversation of transfers and his value and whatnot. And every time he goes on the pitch, he feels not very motivated about it. That, for me, is a very plausible explanation of what's going on in his personal life.
Fair enough. Alex, let's get your quick thoughts on Diego Rossi and him losing. Essentially, I don't want to say complete form, but it sure feels like it.
Yeah, definitely, a bit of a regression in this play compared to last year. I think Back in Black said it best, I think his mind mentally is somewhere else. Like last year, right, you had Chicharito making comments like, this is the end of my career, right? This is my retirement. And he kind of had the mentality going into last season. And don't be shocked that, he had a down year, didn't play to the expectations that were put on him by the transfer fee and by the name that is Javier Hernandez. So, seeing him change his mentality now for this upcoming year, and it's really paid off, right? Before he got injured, leading scorer of all of MLS. So I think it's definitely something mental, because he has all the physical attributes to really dominate on the soccer field, whether it be wherever, in whether it be here in MLS or abroad. I think he's a really good physically gifted footballer. He's got good speed and just really good technically as well. I just think mentally it's something there, whether it be bothering. I don't know if it may be family, whether it be, all the speculation about his future, and whether it be, something him not getting along with teammates or something like that. I think it's just a mental stage right now that he's in, because we all know the talent that he has. He's shown it in MLS. So that's the only real thing that I can kind of point to say this is why you've seen him dip in form, like compared to last year.
It better not be teammates, man. He's got his own 2 Uruguayans. One doesn't even play. They both paid a buttload of money. Excuse me. Yeah. I mean, you just don't even go there with the teammate thing. And I'm being serious about it, because everything we've done was to make Rossi comfortable. And I believe bringing Rodriguez back and creating a cluster of Uruguayan players has a lot to do with his success. So, I hope that's not the reason, but it's a good point. Maybe he doesn't get along with Vela and some of the other captains.
We'll see. But Oscar on Facebook brings up a great point that will lead to the next point, which is Bob Bradley. He says, it's tough for any team to recover from firing a coach mid-season, but I think it's better to start now so the team can have an idea of how they can get better for next season. Vela is not hungry for the game. Maybe it can be motivation that the coach is supposed to provide. Obviously, this is referring to Bob Bradley. I know we started off talking about Bob Bradley. Obviously, it falls on him, and obviously, I think this is the first time I've ever heard him talk the way he talked. That it falls on him, because he has to be a solution man. Bob has to find a way when things aren't rolling. And I also think there were so much expectations for LAFC this year to start the year that I felt like there were a lot of mental obstacles more than the obstacles on the pitch, because they had the talent. So let's talk about Bob Bradley, because I know you had mentioned that he may be out of ideas, Andy. But seeing how the team has performed and seeing how the conversations after the press call, how optimistic are you about Bob Bradley coaching this team moving forward?
Listen, coming into, I guess, let's say this past few games, I was just not paying attention to any of the conversation about. Obviously, fans get mad and the Bob out stuff starts to pick up steam, but. I wasn't as convinced that there was much of an issue with Bob, but I feel like it's completely different now for the sake of, like I said, him just simply running out of ideas. And I think everything that he's tried this season just has not worked for him. Of course, you factor in unlucky situations and injuries and things like that, but I think the perfect example is what you mentioned, Gio. When I asked him about Chicho playing that 9 role, it's Bob has a system, and this is how LAFC has functioned. The system just may not be working. And that's the problem. When I asked him about Chicho playing the 9 role, he said, yeah, that's what he goes in as. But because of the fluidity of their offensive attack, he might be on the wing sometime because of how they play. And to me, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago on the show, that's not the way to get production out of a newcomer that you're signing that's a traditional striker. Already that's going to have to go through a learning process to the league to adapt to how the team plays. And now you're asking him to do, X, Y, Z that may not be in his forte. Sure, if the team was in a better standing and had time to mess around that way, perfectly fine. You could do that. Your system is working. But the problem is, when I mentioned earlier, they don't have time. The system isn't working. And it just seems like everywhere he looks, there's not any positive outcomes of that. And I think that his demeanor, his accountability, him actually saying that after this past game was shocking to me. And I think that was the first sign of him kind of this relationship may be over. And I mentioned it already in the past months or so. This game against the Galaxy is going to be very telling. If LAFC goes out and somehow finds a way to win that game or get a draw, sure, it's going to ease up things a lot. But if LAFC goes out and gets embarrassed by the Galaxy, which probably, it's not improbable, it's going to fast track things a lot. And I think there's going to have to be real conversations to be had between Thornton, between Bob, if he wants to continue. I think that Bob obviously deserves the respect that he gets from LAFC, from the league. That's fair. We're not going to argue that because of what he's done, but it's fine to say when things are not working, when it's time to move on. He won't be fired. I highly doubt that. But it's a conversation that now does have to be had, because now we're not talking about them just not playing well. We're talking about them potentially missing the playoffs. And, coaches have been fired and teams have moved on for a lot less. So I think because of expectations, because of how good this team was coming into MLS, because of 2019, because of the talent, everything, bubbles up, and you could point fingers, like I said earlier, at players for certain mistakes, but at the end of the day, things will fall back on the coach. And Bob is the one that now is saying, I have to answer for this. I have to be the one to set the tone for these individual players, for Rossi, for Atuesta, for Vela, for the team. And if that doesn't happen within the next few games, then I think, it's 100% fair to think that he will not be the head coach of this team next season.
Yeah, and we should mention he's also on his contract here. The Athletic reported that, and then the broadcast also brought that up. Back in Black, I know you're part of the voices of some people are not. They're very vocal about Bob Bradley. Some are in, some are Bob out. How are you feeling about Bob Bradley?
Well, so I believe we do need a change, and it will come. It is his contract year, and if you study Bob Bradley's career, he's already outlived his average tenure for what he typically does for a team. It's about 3 to 4 years. 3 years, I believe, is the average. So he's already above that. And what I take from that, what's interesting also, as I kind of look at his history, is that he hasn't been let go too much. That was the big EPL thing that happened. But outside of that, he's always been, invited to take over another team, or politely declined to continue, or has been told to politely step down, like what happened in Egypt and such. So, his mindset might already be there, that he's out. And it could be just because it's his end of his career, and he's the kind of guy that is looking for the next thing. And he's an East Coast guy. Could be a Red Bull opportunity to rebuild that club, which he did it before when they were the Metro Stars. So it looks to me, and just my closing remarks, because I know we're closing out, but it looks to me that this is the closing chapter of an LAFC story, right? The closing, because all the players that you mentioned, Kay leaving, Atuesta, some of the guys at the end of their contract, it's also coinciding with this coach going away. So you're right. This could be the end of an era. I'm hopeful we can still turn it around and make a playoff run as a lower end team. And again, injuries, right? That's really the difference maker there. Can we make it as a 7th seed? But, as far as his service to the team, I believe it's over. Whether we're going to let him go the next couple weeks, it depends on how bad we would potentially lose to the Galaxy. I'll be honest, because there's no reason to make a change now if we already know that we're not going to make the playoffs. I don't believe in, you come in and you get some games. A lot of the guys in the spaces believe that that's the way to go. I don't believe that adds that much to it. You can come in off season and know what you have, but that's me. But he needs to go. And I believe if we want to be gentleman-like about it, so be at the end of the season.
Yeah. Alex, what are your thoughts with the Bob Bradley situation?
Yeah, I'm just gonna change it up a bit. Last time I was up here, Gio, like a couple months ago, right? It was me and LFC Live, and I asked him this question. I'll ask this to you, Back in Black. Like, I'm pretty sure you can agree with this statement, maybe not, but for me, when I look at this team, I think this team's already peaked, right? You're not gonna get anything else more than just the Western Conference Finals appearance. There was that 2019 season winning Supporter Shield, and that was the peak of this franchise, really. And I don't think they're ever going to go back to that with this core roster of Vela, Rossi, and whoever else is on that team, right? Would you agree with that statement that this team's already peaked?
Yeah, I think we peaked. I definitely don't see us being able, because first of all, the contracts will expire. Vela won't be back. Vela's not the same guy, right? The DPs will probably change. So yeah, it's going to change. And a lot of the crop of 19 that was successful is already gone.
Yeah. No, I feel like I'm with Andy. I think a lot will come down to.
I hate to agree with a Galaxy fan, by the way.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, he brought up a fair comment. I think a lot. Look, I'm not going to look past Vancouver because I know that's the next game, but a lot will come down to the Galaxy. This is just my view. If they get embarrassed, like SKC type of game at the bank, I think. I don't know how you can continue after that. There's no way that you can get embarrassed by the LA Galaxy. The flip side, the other side to it is they could also come and get a win because El Tráficos are Clásicos are unpredictable.
It doesn't matter what form you're in when it comes to that game. It doesn't matter at all.
We've seen what Galaxy did to LAFC last couple of years, right? So it doesn't matter. In that game, to me, that game, I may be crazy, but that game can change LAFC season. or it could just end it. It's right that I think to me that game will define LAFC's season. And I know there's still games left and everything like that, but if LA Galaxy beats you 2 out of the 3 times this year and what you're going through, like the life I feel like will be sucked out of the stadium. Yes, I know there's games and you'll still have you'll still have a chance to battle, but this team should not be battling for 7th place. This team should be battling for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. That's what this team was built for, and that's the thing. And they shouldn't be scrapping to find a place in the playoff. It should be scrapping for a title, and I think that is the biggest difference. So I think it really comes down to the Galaxy game and how that goes and how they win or lose or draw or whatever, because that is a turning point one way or the other, at least for me, because of everything there comes a point that you can't say, okay, we need a little bit more time. Halfway through the season already, and the skills challenge and all this, it's supposed to be a great time because Bob Bradley's going to be coaching the All-Star game. The skills challenge, it's in LA, it's in Carlos Vela's home, but it's not feeling that way being in 8th place right now. So I think that to me it will be the game determining factor whether they let him go after the season or whatever. Look, at the end of the day, Bob Bradley will find a job after if he doesn't continue with LAFC. That's point and given. Any MLS team would want to have Bob Bradley if they don't already have a coach. Any team, I can name Houston Dynamo, any team, right? Would glad to have his services. But that's just the way I see it. Let's get some final thoughts, Andy. Let's get some final thoughts here for LAFC. Do you feel that they will be able to turn it around?
I mean, I'm just gonna say no because that's what they're showing. Whether or not they could, the possibility is definitely there. I've seen crazier things happen in MLS. The way that this league is set up, the way that the games are set up, and just because of what I've said all season, that the talent is there. Whether or not they could get it together is to be seen. But just looking at obviously Chiqui Palacios' injury did not look well.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I don't want to assume anything, but probably not going to see him again this season. The way that he came off that field, so you're already looking at a position, a back line that was, in dire need of depth, and now you take another piece out of that. And then even just thinking about Fall played so well in Atlanta, but do you go into a game against the Galaxy starting him? Like, I don't know if that pressure gets to you. Like, it's just so many dynamics of what LAFC is dealing with right now that just, me as a neutral journalist that's just covering the team and seeing them doesn't lead me to fan,
but yeah, go ahead.
that they're in any position to do that. But like I said, I've seen stranger things happen. So hey, the Galaxy and LAFC play in October. We could be talking about a Tráfico with playoff implications for the team. We could see them in the playoffs the way the standings are. If LAFC sneaks in there, Galaxy stay up above the top 3. So the possibilities are there, man. It's gonna be for sure very interested to see what happens. But yeah, like we've all said, I think that this game coming up against the Galaxy will tell us a lot. And shout out to Carly Lloyd. That's the reason I'm wearing this jersey today. Shout out to Carly Lloyd, man.
There you go. Respect to the legend. I know she announced her retirement today. Back in Black, final thoughts. Are they gonna turn things around or no?
So I was crunching some numbers, and I can tell you that we have a few games left. And
calculators out.
Yeah.
Let's check it out. No, I'm already calculating because it is not where we are out of time. And a couple more devastating losses where we shouldn't have not had a loss, it will be season over. We have 2 games against San Jose, which I predict 1 win, 1 tie. 2 games with Vancouver. We must win both. That's a must win on Wednesday. That's a more important game for us than the Galaxy game. We have 2 games against the Galaxy, which I predict us winning 1. We have to win in order to make it. 2 games against Portland. 1 against Atlanta we lost because it's a little bit updated. 1 against SKC, that should be a loss. Real Salt Lake, ATX, and then a couple others, right? So we need 5 wins at least to get to, anywhere. So I asked this question, where are these wins are going to come from, right? There's not a lot of easy games left if you're going to drop points for the easy game. So the solution is don't drop any more easy points and win a couple of big games. We'll see.
So to your calculations, no pun intended, they have to win at least 5 games of the 16, 15. I don't recall.
They have to win 5 games to have a chance. I can't see 5 wins. It's tough.
That's very interesting. I mean, with this talent, 5 wins should not be that hard.
Out of 15 games, right?
Yeah, out of 15 games. Like, yeah. Alex, back in black. Alex, final thoughts.
Yeah, I'll just say this to give some hope to some of the LAFC fans, right? I think if I'm correct, 2017, 2018, the Seattle Sounders were out of, the playoffs mid-season, right? They didn't look like a good team. And then wouldn't you know it, they went on a good run at the end of the season, squeezed into the playoffs, and wouldn't you know it, end up winning MLS Cup. Anything's possible in this league. I still think they have a good enough talent on paper to really get it together. I just think it's a matter of time and just really the players kind of getting to know their roles a little bit better, because this team is talented. Vela is a top player. Rossi is a top player. As a Galaxy fan, I'm not going to be here saying they're trash and stuff. These are quality players. They
That's
have really
not what
quality.
You said earlier. That's not what you were saying.
I never said that. I never said that. I never said that.
No,
Look, I know when a player is quality. I know when they're trash. Yeah. Vela and Rossi are quality players, just not up to the par that we've seen our last couple of years. I do think there's a good chance for them to squeeze into the playoffs, but we'll have to see what coaching adjustments are made and if players can get back to their form of previous years.
Look, if LAFC make the playoffs and somehow, to your Seattle Sounders thing that they win the championship, I'm gonna have to clip this and post this and be like, look, you can blame, you can thank or blame Alex for.
Oh my gosh, I'm better.
Hey, let me add one thing about this Vancouver game, because back in black, you said it's a good point. It's a very important game for LAFC. This is Vancouver's first home game in Lord knows how long. So if for things not being easy,
it's lining up for another.
Things not being easy for LAFC in the progression of the season.
Oh, and it's on turf. It's on turf too. And it's on turf too.
And it's going to be a vibe.
It's going to be a whole party in there. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, that's
and our egos are bruised. So it's lining up for another loss. And like I said, it's a must win because they're below us. And we cannot lose for teams that are below us in the standings anymore. And that's why I'm like, if we lose on Wednesday, this weekend, it's like, oh boy, it's game over. I mean, if we lose to the Galaxy, it's a good team. They're top of the league, and we get to play them again. That's expected. We're going to split it, right? I want to win both, but this is a win. This is a must win against Vancouver. We should have won that game at home, and we dropped 2 points to them. And now those points we're missing them. We're missing them.
So I got Vancouver. Obviously, they're in 12th place, but LAFC, I don't remember all the games covering both teams, but they lost to Vancouver. Vancouver earlier this season.
That was here at the bank.
That was at home. Okay.
Tie.
Yeah, it was a tie. It wasn't a loss.
So Vancouver's got LA's back this season.
It's a loss because we should have won.
It felt like a loss for sure.
We tied Minnesota, which is now in 5th place. So you're starting to see some of the damage we've sort of done to ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Where that team the 5th place should be us. We should be the 5th team because of the games we dropped.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. 23 points, 8th place. And yeah, look, and like what I brought up earlier, like from 5th to 8, or from 5th, let's do from 6th to 20, from 9th, even 10th with Dallas. You're just looking at 1 or 2 points, right there where you're at.
And like I said, we played San Jose twice, Dallas once, Vancouver twice, Austin once, so Portland twice, Minnesota once, Los Angeles twice, Kansas once, and Seattle once. So you're playing the bottom way more, right? And that's what I'm saying. You got to find 5 wins here.
And everybody's going to be hungry to win too.
Yeah, you should be able to. It's not season lost, but if you look at us a month ago, we were 5th, right? And now we're 8th. Where's the bottom? We don't know where the bottom is right now. And when we lost Chiqui Palacios and all the people there that were losing in the defensive side of the field and our offensive struggling, let's see what happens here. I'm going to crunch more numbers and tell you in a couple of weeks where we are. We really will know everything by the Galaxy game.
This is the thing about the West too, because every team that's in that table besides Austin, I think LAFC should be scared of, because we saw Vancouver come into Carson and play a tough game against the Galaxy and leave here with a point, which should not be happening if you look at a team that's in 12th against a team that's at the top of the table. So the fact that people say, "Oh, it's Vancouver," like Vancouver is not an easy team to play against, regardless of where they are.
They're no joke.
Houston is a good team. Dallas is shaky, but the only team in that West that I would say that right now doesn't have it going is the one that's currently at the bottom. So it's going to be a fight every game, regardless.
Yeah, no, that's tough. Well, yeah, look, guys, we've gone over, so we're just gonna wrap things up. Look, everybody, thank you for everybody that commented on the live chat on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well. For the guests, Andy, Back in Black, Celso, Total Galaxy, Alex. That wraps up the show, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.